So I'd love to jump on and throw that question in. Where would you recommend our audience to start on their journey? How do they go about identifying where to focus their time and attention?
I want to add to that. I think, for me, the best place to start is understand. Just go and understand who your employees are, what matters to them. And I think, there's various ways using data to do that. And I think there are some real challenges in terms of getting that information at scale. I think the second piece is that Martin's already spoken to is the baseline. Once I understand who my employees are, let me baseline on where they are currently, and then I can prioritize just where to start. And I'll make it practical. I was in an organization where the sales workforce, the attrition rate was something ridiculous, like I think 68% turnover during the course of the year. The main assumption that they then made is that there is something wrong in how we are onboarding, offboarding our people in terms of the talent attraction approach. But by understanding who the sales employee was in that particular instance, they actually realized the biggest challenge was in the client interaction sales process. And that was why people left. It had nothing to do with them wanting to join the organization. But they had to take the time starting from an employee experience perspective to first go and understand what does the actual sales interaction look like. And that then over a period of 18 months resulted in them bringing it down to, I think, about something in the 20% turnover 18 months later. So for me, start by just understanding, asking questions, testing assumptions. Once you've got that out of the way, then look at the baseline where we are now, understand where the priorities are, and then just start with that. I think Martin mentioned earlier, don't try to do everything immediately. Fix one or two things, optimize one or two things, and from there, it will slowly but surely start evolving.
One of the questions that has come up before, and it's an interesting one. Have you seen any impact on your customer experience by improving your employee experience? Have you made any direct correlations between that? I'm just interested to know if any of you have that data.
One of my previous employers, where we did have that data from a call center call experience, right, in terms of the quality of calls, quality of engagement. What was interesting for me, though, is when we defined what the employee experience looks like and when we defined what the client experience needs to look like, the metrics that we started looking at actually started changing quite a bit. I think we fell into the trap by not looking at both in conjunction, where initially we would look at certain client metrics that it's just impossible to drive that via a good, healthy employee experience. So in short, in that particular instance, yes, we did have the data, but the two insights were firstly that we need to make sure we measure the right things with these two journeys walking with each other. And once we've got that, we started seeing an influence. When the one goes up, the other one goes up as well. And then you could start predicting over time as some of your, and Martin's earlier point, also then looking at that with employee engagement data to start looking at future trends that will also start happening when some of these things start shifting.
Darren had a question. I asked, how do you guys feel about the quality of the organization's leadership as the most important baseline? Is this the single most important, impact for experience interactions with the business, is what they're hearing from the leadership team.
I worked with a previous CMO, and she always made the comment to say, you need to sneak certain things in so that you can show that they work. And then based on that, you are able to have the conversations that you want to. And I think Martin is spot on when he says, I think there is a big mindset shift from leadership. So for me, definitely the buy-in component and how we lead people and how we engage with people, definitely. But I think you also need to prove, and I think that's often where HR has struggled. We need to prove the fact that this is not just a new buzzword, a new fad. This is actually something that is starting to pull a lot of different things together that we have been talking about for almost decades. And I think to really make that point, you do need to have a few very good, solid, context-specific use cases of why that made a difference here. And I think those evidence points will start helping and shifting leaders along. Because for me, it's different between getting their buy-in, saying they think this is a good idea, getting them to really change their mindset to lead in this particular way, and then eventually almost transferring it to them that they are the owners of that within the domains where they operate. Because ultimately, yes, it is about what does the relationship look like? What does the trust look like with me and my leader? And how does that influence then the whole perception of the experiences I have? So I would say sneak it in. What's the worst that could happen? Try it out, and then make sure that everybody rallies behind it.
Lydia asked, what do you think the future trends are when it comes to colleague engagement in the next sort of 5 years? What are some of the things that you see that will be popping up more?
I think something that Sarah mentioned earlier is I think we're going to get a lot smarter around understanding sentiment in real time, so that it's actually a much more engaging two-way street of us making faster decisions and tweaks around the employee experience. So I think at the moment, our cycles of really doing those things are still extremely, extremely long, but we need to mature a bit so that we are able to get there. So I think that would definitely shift. I think the second one is people's relationship with work. Just listen to our conversation this morning has already changed. You know, who I am as an employee, what I want from work, why I work and where I work. And those things are going to really, really make, you know, the employee experience space very, very interesting. You know, so what Fraser has mentioned, there's employees that do different types of work. And if we have to think about certain work happens in certain places, that is going to play a key role on how we perceive employee experiences and how things like fairness and equity and equitable experiences play out in an organization and what we stand for and how we communicate around that. So I think there will be instances where we are going to have to say, this is the reason. It might not be a great experience for everybody, but these are the reasons why we are making that particular call. And it's based on principles that we believe in as an organization, in which we have communicated before. And so I think there will be a trend towards less ambiguity as to why we are doing things and actually starting to really be clear about what that means for employees. And I think the last one I want to mention is I think we will get to a space where if employee experience is really ingrained in the culture of the organization, it is something that is a multifunctional, and I think, Martin, you're in a very fortunate position already, I think, but it is something that is a cross-functional, multifunctional area within the organization that actually has a very, very far reach pertaining to a lot of things, where I think a lot of functional things will happen on the one side that flows into experience, and then that touches the employee. But that's going to call for very, very big shifts from how we think about operating models, which I think will happen in a couple of years.
Before I kind of we wrap things up, I just want to ask a question of, you know, we've covered so much today. What sort of parting piece of advice would you give to the audience? One thing that they should go away and focus on?
I think to add on to what Sarah's mentioned, go and find out who's the humans in your organization and not just the employees. If you're able to do that, I think you're setting yourself up for a very robust and fruitful employee experience journey.